we've been building this boat for
2 years.
Quite a while now.
Yeah.
But we've finally reached a tangible milestone.
But a sailboat without sails is just a powerboat with a big, expensive, shiny lightning rod. So we're going to start measuring for new sails now that the mast is up. So we're right in the middle of a very exciting time on this rebuild. We have the iPad.
We do.
Because today's a big one. There's a lot to go over, and we get distracted very easily when we're 3 cups of coffee deep. So we have notes.
The main important thing to consider when it comes to sail is that for us, it's not about propulsion. It's not about how fast we can sail. It's mostly about range. And then Dan will explain why.
On most cruising boats, when the wind is outside of that 8 to 20 knot range, if you got a diesel engine, most cruisers just motor. And on our boat being electric, the goal of our sails is just to extend that range of usable wind that we can still get our boat to move forward in. So all the way down to the light wind, all the way up into really heavy wind. The more ability we have to keep our boat moving, the less power we have to consume out of our battery bank, and the more power we can generate from regen.
Yeah, because just like Dan said, because we are all electric, the point of our sails is to be able to allow us to move in all sorts of conditions. And there's heavy weather, which is the first one, which gets all the drama. But our theory is heavy weather is actually less complicated than people usually make it sound like, because you can make your sail smaller, you can reef, you can make sure that everything is condensed and you can still move controllably. But it's the light wind. It's when the wind is barely there. That's the most challenging for boats, especially when it comes to a boat without an engine. And so that's why I was going to say lightning sails.
Lightning sails. Oh, I want lightning sails.
Lightning sails. Would that be a huge spinnaker with just like a...
No, that would be like a lightning rod attached to a giant capacitor.
So that when the lightning
you
gets
can absorb
there...
all of it and then motor really, really fast.
Yeah. Imagine if a lightning sails grabs all the lightning and then
Channels
the battery.
That's some Nikola Tesla style shit. Just
The
pulling
lightning sails.
electricity out of the atmosphere.
Well, if you are an investor, feel free to email us at lightningsales@sailingaway.com.
Now we need to make that email address.
We made notes so that we don't get distracted.
Right.
So anyway.
Light wind sails.
Light wind sails. But that's why light wind sails are so important, because then we can actually move when the wind is barely there.
Mm-hmm. And optimizing our boat for that light wind performance is really important, which is something we've slowly learned over the years and have slowly tried to get better and better at and rig our boat better and better. But now that it's an all new rig and basically an all new boat and we're able to really optimize it perfectly, we're excited to get this whole sail suite designed and finalized, because it's going to be epic.
So back in 2017, when we were in the Bahamas, we measured for our first set of sails from Precision. And back then we had a little bit of sailing under our belt, so we knew where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do next. But to be honest, it was a lot of guesses, because we didn't have all these years of experiences. We didn't have all the heavy and light weather sail condition and crossing. So we thought we knew what we wanted, but the reality is we had a lot of gaps that now we can fill up.
Yeah.
That just
we got a lot of gaps that we can fill up with sails. We have gaps we can fill with our sails. Sailing gaps.
Sailing gaps.
Sailing gaps.
Yeah.
Previously, we had kind of what everybody has on a standard cruising boat. We had a mainsail with 3 reefs in it, and we had a relatively large head sail called a genoa, and when the wind gets a bit heavier, you can reef the genoa, you can reef the mainsail, and that worked okay from like maybe 10 or 12 knots of wind to 25, maybe 30 knots of wind, depending on the sail angle. And for a lot of people, that's plenty, because under that, they'll motor, and over that, they'll motor. And along the way, we added to that inventory with a spinnaker, which helped us go downwind in lighter wind conditions. And then our most recent sail that we upgraded to up when we were kind of in Norway and coming down was putting a code 0 on the boat. And that's really a light wind engine, but it's for reaching. It's for when the wind's kind of coming across perpendicular to the boat.
Yeah.
And so we were able to at least see what our boat was capable of in those lighter winds. And it was quite exciting to be able to roll out one sail and just actually sail in 8 knots of wind and be doing 4 or 5 knots, which was really, really cool.
Our old sails, they worked, but they definitely had some compromises.
Yeah.
Our mainsail was able to reef down. I think we had 3 reefs, but we couldn't bring it down lower than that. And our big genoa, it's great when the wind is kind of at that sweet spot. But then when the wind is too heavy, you roll it in and it becomes kind of this big clunk, and it just made it wish that we had more control with a smaller head sail.
I think we spent most of our Atlantic crossing with our genoa rolled all the way up to a tiny little handkerchief because we were in 30 to 45 knots of wind for a lot of that crossing.
But the problem with doing that is, yes, you can still move forward, but the shape of the head sail changes, so you don't have as much control as you would if you had just a smaller sail. And then the spinnaker, we loved our spinnaker, but the spinnaker wasn't designed for our boat. It was a passed down spinnaker from, I think, a J boat. So the shape of it and the dimensions weren't quite adjusted for Uma. So we always find that something was missing, and it didn't roll properly, and it didn't quite fill up properly.
It just was too small.
It was too small.
It was too small where it counted, which was down along the bottom where all the sail shape needs to be.
Yeah. So all of our sails this time around are going to be built by Precision Sails, just like our previous set, just because we found that they tend to overbuild the cruising sails, and working with them has been absolutely exceptional. And our old sails have sailed us all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, up the coast of Norway, up to Svalbard, down to Jan Mayen and Iceland, and then into the Med. And I swear, when we took them off, they felt so crispy. They felt like we had just put them a month ago. So they're relatively still new.
Well, and if we were keeping our old rig, I mean, we kept all of our old sails in case we were going to keep our old mast. And we would have been happy to put them right back on and keep sailing. But because it's a new mast, new rig, getting a custom set of new sails tailored specifically for our new dimensions is going to be exceptional.
Yeah.
So our old main and genoa will be donating for resale. So somebody else will be able to use them on their boat. And some of our older storm jib, spinnaker, spare sails we're probably going to do something cool with. Since Uma's rig and mast and deck layout are all new, we're able to measure and design a complete new set of custom-made sails specifically for this boat, specifically for our needs and where we're planning to sail, including optimizing our light wind setup so that we can sail in less and less wind. Because like Kika said, heavy weather, you can just keep reducing sail area and keep the boat moving. But it's the light wind that's actually the real challenge.
Not to give you too much detail, but we are planning to go into some epic locations. So we want our next set of sails to be matching the robustness of our mast, let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for the past few days, we have been prepping the rest of our deck after the mast went up. And yesterday, Martin from Precision came to help us measure everything. Technically, you can do it by yourself, and we previously had measured for sails by ourselves, and they fit just fine. But Martin's their new EU distributor, and since we're in the EU, he was able to just pop down to Olbia with a tape measure and all of his sail building knowledge. And we were able to go over the entire boat and go over the basic measurements, but then also add some of our own special measurements to make things fit even better and to make sure that our new set of sails are going to fit absolutely perfectly.
The more measurements, the better, because
yes, absolutely,
the more accurate the design becomes.
We don't want to confuse non-professionals
yeah.
end. So we want to make it as easy as possible. So we are not asking for all those, but there are definitely more measurements you can take.
It was also good to have somebody here on the boat so we could talk about our design philosophy, what worked previously, what we were hoping for in the future, you know, our boat's balance and everything. And he could actually see everything on deck and really make sure that what we're hoping for is going to become a reality.
Do you have a backstay?
Yes.
With this measurement, we can adjust the roach. What's the plan for reefing? So 12 centimeters.
Yeah.
550. Then we also have to do a little bit of the cosmetics here. And don't forget to take a picture.
This is when I think you need to get one of those new pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses.
Oh yeah, you can just record.
So you can just be like, take a picture. And you're just like, take a picture. Take a picture. And just like keep them all in your sunglasses.
So once we've had all the measurements that we possibly can take, and Martin took all the pictures that he possibly can take. He took all of that and went back to the office, and the next step was to hop on a series of calls with Precision Sales to figure out exactly how we wanted those sales to be, because measurement is the first step. Designing was the most second important step. The way that we think about it is a set of gear. If you ride a beach bicycle with one gear, you can ride it, but at some point you kind of wish you could change.
Yeah, you can only ride it
your speed
flat and at one speed.
In the Netherlands, it's great, but as soon as you take it to Norway, that's it. You're done. So that's kind of how we see it. We want to have a different set of gear for the boat.
The cool part is, since we redid the rig, mast, and deck layout, the only sail that won't be hoisted all the time is if we want to swap back and forth between a spinnaker, which is really good for going downwind, and our Code Zero, which is good for sort of that reaching when the wind is on the beam. Those two are going to fly off of the bowsprit, and depending on the wind angle, we'll have one up and one in the locker, and then we'll switch those in and out. But behind that is going to be our Genoa, which is going to be bigger than what we had before, but also a lighter weight material.
But heavier than the spinnaker and the Code Zero.
But heavier than the spinnaker and the Code Zero. So it's kind of in that middle ground. So the Genoa will be good for light wind, upwind sailing. The Code Zero will be good for light wind, beam reaching. And then the spinnaker is going to be good for downwind sailing. And then aft of the Genoa is going to be our new Solent jib, which is on a second inner forestay that we're installing. And that is going to be a much smaller working jib for those heavier sea states, heavier wind conditions. We find ourselves in 25 to 35 knots of wind all the time. And with the right sails and the right balance, sailing in those conditions are completely normal and pretty comfortable on our boat, actually. And with that inner jib, we'll be able to get tighter angles to the wind as well. So sailing upwind, we'll be able to point a little bit higher. And then aft of that is going to be our removable inner stay, which will be able to deploy and hoist a proper storm jib, which is really cool because then we can, unlike rolling up just a single head sail, all of that sail area goes forward and up when you roll it up, which is the last place you want that force to be. So by having a dedicated storm jib, we're able to bring that center of effort aft and down closer to the mast, so the boat becomes much more comfortable. It heels less. There's less weather helm. Everything about it's just better. So those times we've been caught out in 45, 50 knots of wind, it's going to be much nicer to have like that dedicated, compact, really heavy, really durable system.
Yeah. And then we have the mainsail.
Yes. The mainsail is going to go up aft of the mast. That's just the workhorse. The mainsail's up all the time. This time around, we're changing the reefing system a little bit because we're adding what most people would call a trysail, which is a storm sail for the main, but we're kind of modifying it to be even more useful. Trysails are a bit complicated, and they're kind of usually just thrown on a rig. They're called a trysail because people try them, I guess. Last case, no, because like worst case, you throw the trysail up. That's what I've heard. Most trysails are rigged with just sheets off to the side, and they become kind of impractical to actually use. But that stay going up the side of the mast that we kept as a bit of a secret is for our trysail. It's a separate stay to hoist our trysail on. And the trysail is going to be attached to the boom, so we can use all of our normal mainsail control lines to control it. So the way we see it is really more of a fourth reef, and it's also going to be really heavy, really flat, really durable, and it's going to be paired well size-wise with the storm jib so that the whole boat stays balanced when we're sailing in like 40 plus knots of wind, which is more often than we'd like. There's a lot of names that get thrown around when designing sails. Everybody in the sailing industry agrees that the mainsail is called the mainsail, and that's as far as the agreement goes. We like to say that the further forward of the mast you get, the more names sails get. The problem is every sail loft and every manufacturer sort of comes up loosely with their own terms for a sail, and usually they're based off of some racing rule or some racing handicap or some spec, and that gets trickled down to the cruising world, like Code Zeros and Code Ds and A1 spinnakers and A1.5 spinnakers and A2 spinnakers and J1s, and like head sails have so many names that it makes my head spin. And so what we were able to do is just really explain exactly what we wanted the sail to do and the conditions that we wanted the sail to work in. And then they designed the sails that would work in those conditions, and then sort of put a name on them so that we could all kind of agree what we're talking about.
But the name really doesn't really matter because
Exactly.
it's our boat anyway.
Especially because we're not trying to fit into any racing rules. We don't have to have weird-shaped spinnakers and weird-shaped code zeros because this is a downwind sail, but that's an upwind sail, and if you have this, you get a handicap and blah, blah, blah. Like, it gets complicated racing. We don't know much about it. But we've been able to take our last set of sails and our last code zero and the spinnaker we had and go over all of the designs that worked, all of the aspects that didn't, modify things, adjust things. I think our first call was 5 hours and our second call was 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
So we've gone over a lot and modified a lot. And I think we've come to a place where we're all really happy with the shape, the selection, the material, the hardware, all the bits and pieces, how they're going to operate.
But now is the harder part, which is us to wait for the sails to be in production and to arrive. And we have a lot of things to do on this boat before our sails get here. So that gives us a really cool timeline to work forward to. And hopefully by the time that we get our sails in the mail, we will be ready to launch and actually put them to use. So that's exciting. In the
got a lot of work
meantime,
to do, so.
let's keep working on that boat.
Yeah.
So see you guys next week. And don't forget to subscribe so that you know what's going on. And then you can keep follow on. Follow
Did
along.
your coffee just like drip right out? At the
Yeah,
very end?
I think it just removed all the words that I could possibly
shutting
say.
down.
All right.
Do you want to do it?
Cheers, guys.